Hello, this is Mr. Bahork, and we are going to learn how percents relate to equations. So, in the last video I had made a video about how percents relate to proportions. So this is kind of like an alternate. I know a proportion is basically an equation. It's like a special type of equation and all. But I just want to show you that there's another alternative way to doing those type of problems where we can just set up an equation and solve for the missing variable, or solve for the missing number. So, remember, for this lesson, certain math words actually translate into math symbols. So, for example, so let's say when you see of in a problem, usually this indicates to multiply. We're multiplying something. And another one would be is. Is indicates it's equals. Okay. So those are just two important math words. And another one that's not really used very often is if I say something like what. Okay, what is this? Okay, this is unknown. That kind of stuff. That indicates a variable. So when there's some kind of question that indicates some sort of variables there, it's the unknown. So let's look at an example of this. So let's say I have, and I'll call this example 1. I say, what is 15% of 40? So what is 15% of 40? Well, we can actually translate this word for word to get an equation. So, what? Well, I don't know what, so I'm going to call that n. Is translates to equals 15%. And now for these equations, I'm going to write that 15% as a decimal. So that's 0.15. Of, as I already said, means multiply. So times 40. So let's clean that up a little bit. I have n equals 0.15 1500ths times 40. Awesome. So when I do that, 0.15 times 40, n is going to equal 6. And that's it. I just translated it word for word into an equation that I could solve for n. So let's do another one real quick. So let's say, and I'm going to use the same kind of numbers here just to show you how to do this and how it relates to one another. Let's say 6 is 15% of what? So let's go down and translate it word for word in this case. So 6, that's just 6, is means equals. I'm going to write this percent as a decimal, 0.15. Of is multiply, and I don't know what it is, so let's say n. So to clean it up a little bit, I've got 6 equals 0.15 n. In order to solve for n, I'm dividing both sides by 1500ths. Those cancel out like always, and 6 divided by 0.15, well, would you look at that, n is equal to 40. Awesome. Alright, hopefully I have enough room to do one more. I hope I do. So let's squeeze in number 3 down here at the bottom and try to write it really small. It says, what percent of 40 is 6? Okay, let's translate this word for word. So what percent, so I don't know the percent, so I'm going to call that n. Of means multiply, 40 equals, that's the is, 6. Let's clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to say 40n instead of n times 40. That's the same thing, equals 6. I'm going to divide both sides by 40 to solve for n. And 6 divided by 40. Now, whoa, wait a second. I didn't quite get the thing I wanted. I got 0.15. But remember, the question asked what percent. So I need to convert this to a percent. That's 15%. So n is 15%. Alright, now to do some more problems real quick. So I want to do a few word problems based on commission. So you probably may or may not have heard of the word commission before, but commission is the amount you make based on how much you sell. So amount you make based on how much you sell. So an example of this would be like in like real estate. So a real estate agent may sell a house that is really, really expensive. This is a nice house, a $132,500 home. And our real estate agent sells this home, and of course she doesn't do this for free. She makes a salary, but for every home she sells, they get kind of like a reward for selling that home. So they actually get a part of that sale. So they actually make some money based on selling that house. So they charge a little commission fee. So our real estate agent in this problem is going to earn 4.5% commission. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write an equation that will represent this little situation that I talked about. So I'm going to say that C represents the commission. That makes sense. So C is the commission, and C is going to be equaling to, I'll say 4.5%, since that's the commission, of, notice I wrote times, $132,500. Then that makes sense. The real estate agent is going to earn 4.5% of this sale, this house sale. So all I have to do here is multiply it. Before I do, I'm going to punch this into the calculator as 0.045. I've got to move the decimal over 2 times 132,500. And that's going to equal the commission. So when I do that, C ends up being $5,962.50. So our real estate agent made a good chunk of cash on selling this fictional $132,000 home. So that's just one example of commission. All right, I'm Mr. Bajorka, and this was using equations to solve percent problems. Remember, this is an alternative to setting up proportions. We could still go back and do proportions for all of these types of problems. For example, the whole 6 is 15% of what? Okay, well, in that particular problem, scratch that out, I kind of messed up there. In that particular problem, if I said 6 is 15% of what, I could still do 15 over 100 is equal to 6 over x, the is over of thing. I could still do that, and I would get 40 as x. But if I don't like setting up proportions, the alternative is, I can set up an equation, and I can solve that equation just as well and get the same answer. All right, again, I'm Mr. Bajorka, and this was Equations and Percents.